Welcome back, everybody, to this session, setting us up for the very important topic on how we're going to engage urban citizens and especially young people in this incredible, important fight to tackle climate change. To introduce and lead us through the next session, please let me welcome to the stage Chief Executive Officer of Realdania and one of C40's strategic founder, Mr. Jesper Nygård. Bienvenido.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for this final session of this great summit. A key theme for what we have been discussing for the last couple of days is how will we be able to scale up the action, to do it fast and to do it so we can make the world more sustainable. One of the best ways to do that is a theme that hasn't been discussed yet and which we are going to use 1 hour to discuss now. It's about citizen engagement. And when you look in the C40 Unlocking Action Report, it is one of the top barriers that has been identified. So we're going to use 1 hour now to discuss that. But before I introduce our keynote speaker for this session, I have a very special, new and very innovative friend who I would like to invite to come on the stage. Hopefully. Yeah, here it comes. This is the modern times answer for R2-D2. This is a robot who is able to transmit through Twitter all what we are doing now. So this robot, hi robot, it's going to be our friend for the next couple of minutes. It's going to be live streaming our keynote speaks, so we can use it. So, and it doesn't have a real name yet. So if you use Twitter now, you could use the hashtag Cities for Climate and a hashtag Give Me a Name. Then maybe they will use that name if you have some good ideas. But then on to the topic, on to our keynote speaker. We're gonna hear from somebody who has been on the front line of the global youth-led environmental campaigning for more than 10 years, and he's only 16 years old. He addressed the UN General Assembly when he was 14 years old, a couple of years ago, and now he's a youth director for Earth Guardians, an organization of young activists around the world. He's currently plaintiff in a lawsuit against President Obama for the failure to protect the atmosphere and the future of our world. So please join me in welcoming on stage the most difficult name in this session to pronounce, Xiuhtezcatl Martinez. Please welcome on the stage. The stage is yours.
Me okay? ¿No? Bueno. Órale. Bueno, pues buenas tardes, señoras y señores. Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Xiuhtezcatl. I'm 16 years old. I'm a climate activist, a spokesperson for my generation, a representative of the youth voices all over the world that aren't necessarily in this room, but still need to be heard, still need to be represented. As was said very beautifully in my introduction, thank you, by the way, for saying my name correctly. It's not an easy one, but I've been on the front lines of this movement for the last 10 years of my life. And a part of what I've done everywhere that I go is say that I'm a representative of mi comunidad in Mexico, of my community in Mexico, the Mexica people. That's my ancestry, that is my lineage on my father's side. And for me, it means a lot to have a lot of my family here in the room. Mi tribu, mi gente Mexica aquí en este cuarto. It means a lot to have my family here in the room for the first time in a very long time that I've seen many of them. So I have a few things to say today, and I hope that they resonate. And this all begins with a 6-year-old kid who stood up onto a stage in his community to speak of an issue that he believed was more important than anything else. And when I was growing up, learning about my culture, about my heritage, about my traditions, my language, my dances, my songs, of my people, it gave me a perspective of the world that helped me understand that everything that we do today is in honor of our ancestors and of those generations that have not been born yet. The decisions that we make and the actions that we take will impact the world. That we have a responsibility as people, not activists, not politicians, but as people, to protect this planet for our generation and those to follow. And so when I was 6 years old, I stood up onto a stage and I delivered a message about climate change. I was telling the parents, you have to educate your kids different. We have to remind the parents of the world that we have to teach young people how to love the earth again. We have to remind each other of a connection to the planet, that we live on a living, breathing planet that we all depend on for life. And I saw that the greatest threat to our earth was climate change. That the climate crisis was going to be the most important issue of our time, and never before would there be a greater opportunity for people to come together to create change. So seeing this crisis through the eyes of a child, of a young person, is very different than looking at this problem from the perspective of a politician or of a businessman or a CEO of a company, where when I look at graphs and charts and statistics of the carbon dioxide of the atmosphere, I think of my siblings, of the children, of the young people in the world today that are going to be inheriting this crisis. Where today we have more carbon in the atmosphere than we ever have since human beings have been on this planet. Because of the way that we are living, because of our imbalance with one another, our imbalance with the planet. Learning about the destruction of our earth and the fact that my world is unraveling was terrifying. That was a very scary thing for me to learn at a very young age. And I guess what I began to understand is I would go to all of these environmental rallies, these environmental protests, and I began to learn that climate change isn't just an environmental issue. This issue was being divided and separated from the rest of the world because people believed that it was up to politicians and activists to deal with climate change. Where in reality, if you look at the impacts that climate change is having everywhere, we see that it's a human rights issue. People's lives are being lost because of climate change. We have millions of climate refugees all over the planet because of islands that are disappearing into the oceans because of storms and wildfires, droughts, changing weather patterns that are disrupting human systems. And they're going to make it impossible for us to survive on this planet if we wait any longer to take action. And you all know this. You all know the statistics, you guys know the facts, you know the fact that our world is collapsing in many ways. And for me, it's been personal because in Colorado, we experienced some of the worst wildfires, some of the worst floods ever just in the last couple years, where I have friends and family members that have lost homes, that have lost community members. And for me, climate change is very real. And as I travel more all over the world to share my voice with more people, I have a greater understanding that we are all connected, and that regardless of where we live, who we are, the God that we believe in, the color of our skin, we are all going to be affected by climate change at one point or another, if it hasn't happened already. And so this all has helped build an understanding that climate change is the most important issue of our time. And as a young person growing up in the world, I understand how easy it is to be disconnected, to feel hopeless, to feel apathetic about a crisis that is so big it seems daunting for one human being to ever be able to create change. My generation, you often find that young people don't care about anything, far less the environment, far less climate change. Because everything that we receive in the media is largely about the crisis, the problem, the suffering, the damage, whether it's climate change or war or nuclear warfare or Syrian refugees. We hear about the problem without being taught how to create solutions. And as human beings, we have been disconnected from these problems by failing to see the solutions that we must create. And if you look at the issue of climate change, many more people will see the solution as wind turbines and solar panels, as just a shift in our energy infrastructure. New laws in the end of the fossil fuel era, and yes, that is important. But I believe that more than anything, to create a change that will last forever, that will pass on a legacy that we are proud of handing to the future generations, we gotta change the way that human beings think. We are treating this beautiful planet as a resource, as a tool, as something that we can take from infinitely without even seeing the impacts and the destruction that is happening around us. As human beings, we have forgotten our connection to the earth, therefore we justify the destruction of it for greed and for more money in our pockets. And I think one of the most beautiful things of being a part of this movement for the last 10 years of my life, of traveling to communities, speaking to politicians, to elected officials, mayors, parliamentarians, presidents, world leaders, young people, activists, students, teachers, is that this movement is diverse and it is stronger when we come together. That every great change that has happened in the world, I see has come from people. Has come from people pressuring our politicians and our government to create change. Has come from revolutionaries standing at the front lines in their communities, mobilizing in their streets, fighting for justice, fighting for their voice to be heard in a world where people are no longer seen as leaders. So after Donald Trump got elected, man, I'm still dealing with that one. But after Trump got elected, people were like, well, what do you think? Is it over? I was like, it can't be, first of all. And second of all, I think that now that we have a leader in the United States government that does not believe in the existence of climate change, it is time now, more than it has ever been, for action to take place at a local level. Where we need change coming from our community leaders, from our mayors, from the youth in our community that have opinions, have voices, that care about these issues and need a place to be able to communicate them. Well, I've traveled everywhere. I've traveled to many places. Let me rephrase that. I've traveled to many places in the world. And I've seen that the greatest power lies within the vision, the voices, and the passion of young people. And so we come together in rooms and spaces like this with mayors from all over the world that each have a different story to tell, that each represent different people, different communities, different issues that they care about. We have power when we gather in a space like this, because if we begin to see changes in cities all over the world, then it's going to create global impact. And if we can connect the change that we see from our local politicians, and we connect that to the youth in our communities, that's going to create a greater movement than we've ever seen before. And in a lot of ways, I've lost hope in our politicians, in our congressmen, and in our presidents, because I've waited so long for change and nothing has happened. And the reason that I'm able to stand here today and not be hopeless is because when people ask me, what is it that you fight for? I think of the smile of my little siblings, of the children that I see on the streets, of the youth, and realize that this is their planet. These are their resources. This is their atmosphere. This is their problem that we're going to be leaving to them unless action is taken today. And it can be really challenging to think about where we are in the world today, but the way that I see it, there is no better time to be alive than now. And each and every one of us have a part to play in this movement, whether we represent the private sector, politics, or the legal system. Like, we all have a place and a part to play. Because this isn't about money, this isn't about politics, this isn't even about government, it's about change, it's about the survival of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. That is what is at stake. So when you think about the way you live your life and the actions that you take, the things that you believe in and the things that you raise your voice or your fist to the sky to fight for, think about who we're doing that for. And the way that I see it is there's no nobler cause than to fight to protect the only home that we have for the young people that will inherit this planet. And it begins today with every person in this room, whether you're a mayor or not. Things like this need to continue to happen. We need to continue to gather, to mobilize this energy and realize that we have so much power in this room. And if we mobilize and we work together, we have more power in this room than any president will ever have. That if we work together with our community leaders, with the front lines fighters, with the activists, with our local politicians, we will have more power and more voices. We will create more justice and more change than any president ever will. So we stand here united. We stand here coming together as one people to create change, to leave behind a legacy. We are here building the legacy that we will be remembered by. And after we are dead and gone, all we will have is a legacy, is the footprints that we have left behind us. So I truly hope, I truly know that we will create, that these kind of things are going to be the first steps to create the change that the world is ready for. Thank you all so much for being here, for listening, for taking this time. And remember that the power to create change is in our hands. I'm a 16-year-old sophomore in high school, and I'm doing everything that I can to create change so no kid ever in the future has to fight the way that I have. So remember, the power is in our hands, in our voice, in the way that we live our lives, in the way that we vote. So united together, we will create the change that the world is ready to see. So let's take this conversation and create it into action, create change. Because never before has there ever been a greater time to be alive than now. Thank you.
So good. Thank you so much. This, everybody here, we are a little more safe about the future of the world with people like you. This was fantastic. Who are saying that the kids of our time don't engage and don't do anything? You are a perfect example of people taking responsibility. So thank you very much. Please stay on the stage. You will have roles in the next part of it. And he's also a hip hopper. And I have this plan on having him throwing a rhyme sometime during this hour. So let's see if that's going to happen. Now we're going to turn the focus to a photo contest. The City of Mexico have taken a very important initiative to engage the youth in sustainability through Your Sustainable Mexico, a youth photo competition. That competition has some winners. And I would like to invite some of the young photographers on stage and to tell us more about the competition and to announce the winners. It's my honor to welcome on stage the Secretary of Environment for Mexico City, Tanya Müller. Please give her a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
And together with her, it's photographer and head of the photo competition jury, Susana, Casarín. Please take the stage, and the show is yours.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and what a great way to end these plenary sessions with such an inspiring talk that we just had. And for the first time within the C40 Summit, Mexico City, we decided to engage with the citizens and to engage with the youth, with the future. And that is why we did this photograph contest months before the summit, to engage with the citizens of Mexico City, as I mentioned, and to have three categories within our photograph contest, which was climate change, mobility, transport, and green infrastructure, green areas. So I really, we had a great answer response, and I really want to take the opportunity to also thank the photographers, the juries, that really took the time to evaluate all the pictures, and we think this was a great initiative to really include the citizens and the youth of Mexico City in this great summit and in the consciousness of climate change and what we can do. So a big applause, please, for all the contestants and the winners. Carmen, if you would like to say a couple of words, si quieres te doy la palabra.
Ok, bueno, pues fue muy interesante y muy importante para nosotros la respuesta tan grande que hubo de los jóvenes. No fue fácil la selección, fue muy, muy complicada. Hubo imágenes muy interesantes, muy comprometidas. Y bueno, pues fue el trabajo de 4 jurados que finalmente calificamos como 750, una cosa así, de fotografías. Y bueno, estamos muy contentos de que haya habido esta reacción de jóvenes en relación a los 3 temas implicados.
So just to mention the photographs that you probably saw within the different halls, they're the pictures or some of the examples of the winning pictures and the participants of this contest. So I think we're going to, Carmen, please, if you want to start, si quieres iniciar.
Ok, bueno, entonces empezamos con el tema cambio climático y el tercer lugar es para Carla Patricia Mesías García.
Hola, si quieres, muchas felicidades.
Segundo lugar, Gerardo Daniel Vieira Pérez.
Muchas felicidades.
Bien hecho. Primer lugar, Ailín González Hernández. Felicidades.
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 Bien hecho, bien hecho.
Wow, qué padre. Bueno, ahora seguimos con el otro tema que es espacios verdes. Tercer lugar, María Fernanda Rojas Suárez.
Muchas felicidades.
Felicidades. Segundo lugar, Beatriz Sámano Figueroa.
Muchas felicidades.
Bien hecho.
Y primer lugar, María del Carmen Balbuena Ballesteros.
Bien hecho.
Y con el tema movilidad, el tercer tema, tercer lugar, Iván Rueda Luna. Felicidades.
Bien hecho.
Muchas felicidades.
Segundo lugar, Sandra Isabel Bobadilla Álvarez.
Muchas felicidades.
Felicidades. Y el primer lugar, José Rodríguez Ramírez.
Muchas felicidades. Ay, perdón, este es el tuyo, ¿no?
Bien hecho. Gracias.
Why don't you all come up here para una fotografía, ¿no? Que pasen todos. Muchas gracias a todos y muchísimas felicidades.
Gracias
Muchas
por el
gracias.
esfuerzo.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Felicidades.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of you. Beautiful pictures, and congratulations with your work. It's very inspiring, and also that work gives us a hope for a sustainable future for our cities. So thank you very much. It's up to the leaders of our cities to harness and mobilize this passion from you in a way that helps achieve ambitious climate action and climate goals. next up, we have a final panel discussion where we will explore how mayors are engaging young people and the rest of the citizens of our cities. So combining that with engagement, with how we can utilizing technology to create tools that enable better public access and better public engagement. To achieve this dramatic scale up in the climate action, which is needed and which has been documented through the whole summit, it is essential to scale this up if we have to meet the Paris Agreement's targets. So we need to be sure that all citizens are engaged, that all citizens are doing their part of this. It's not only better to do it together with the citizens, it cannot be done without the citizens. So I would like to invite 4 panelists, where we have one already, but I would like to invite Mayor Charles Hale from the beautiful city of Portland and one of the award winners from yesterday. Give him a big hand. Welcome. Have a seat. And I would like to invite Secretary of Environment, Veronica Arias, from the beautiful city of Quito. Welcome. And I would like to invite Gabriella Gómez-Mont, Director from Mexico City's Lab of Urban Innovation. Welcome to you also.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a seat. And I don't need to introduce the last one, Xiuhtezcatl, which you have heard earlier. We're now going to have a discussion for the next couple of minutes, around half an hour, where we're going to discuss how we can engage citizens in this movement. And I would like to start with you, Mayor Hales from City of Portland. As we have heard from Xiuhtezcatl, young people are our future. They are the ones inheriting our cities, and they will be mostly affected by decisions taken right now by you and other councillors and politicians in our societies. How is Portland ensuring that ideas from the young people, how are you ensuring that they are heard, and how are you sure that these things are being actioned, particularly with regards in addressing the discussion here about climate change? Could you elaborate a little bit about that, please?
Certainly, and I think Xiuhtezcatl set this up very well for us with talking about the powerful passion of youth. And so the question for us as a society, for those of us who are now older and in positions of power, and for those young people who want to focus that passion, as you have, on this issue, how do we open the door, those of us who have the door in our hands, and how do we let that leadership come through the door? So I would characterize that in 3 ways: to be a neighbor, and to be an advocate, and to be a leader. Again, there's a responsibility on one side, give youth the opportunity to be a neighbor, and to be an advocate, and to be a leader, and an obligation on the part of those young, passionate, earnest citizens to go through that door and be those 3 things. So let me give an example to each of those. We have an amazing tree planting effort in Portland. It's called Friends of Trees. It's a nonprofit. It goes and plants trees in front of each other's homes. It gives people a chance to be a neighbor and to build community, and to be the only city in North America that I know of where the tree canopy is increasing even while the population density is increasing as well. And so thousands of times, young people in our city come out as either volunteers or AmeriCorps volunteers or volunteers as neighbors to do that work. Do that. If you like hands-on work as a young leader, do that. Secondly, be an advocate. And I want to make a point here that has been controversial even in my own city. Being an advocate means more than tweets, and it means more than protests. And I'll talk about that. And then be a leader. If you have that leadership ability, or you believe you have, exercise it. Step forward. It's scary, but it works. So let me tell 2 stories that illustrate this. We have a program in Portland called World Cup Soccer. It's not specifically related to climate change, but it's a soccer program for immigrants and refugees. It's part of an effort in our community to integrate new Portlanders into our community. There was some danger of it being funded or not. The youth involved in that program organized themselves and came to our budget hearings and made the case, and they said powerful things. from their own perspective about how this soccer program enables me to understand other cultures. I'm a Somali. I'm learning about what the Latinas in my soccer team, how their life works. It was unbelievable. And literally in the first hearing that this was being discussed, my colleague on the city council next to me turned to me and said, I don't care what else we do in this budget, we're funding that. So it was a powerful example of youth moving from talking to each other on Twitter to advocating directly in front of power. It's an obligation on the part of power to listen and to respond, as obviously my colleague did. And then one more story, a young woman named Mia Reback in Portland, who was involved in the protest where people dangled off the bridge, remember that, to stop the ship from going back out to service the oil rigs. She was involved in the protest, but then a few months later, she introduced Bernie Sanders to 18,000 people at a rally, 23 years old. And then she led the effort to organize the community for us to pass a fossil fuel export ban in our city. She moved from protest to leadership and became powerful as a young person. My obligation, others' obligation to give her the opportunity to do that, but she took that opportunity. So I hope those two stories of the World Cup soccer, relatively apolitical young people saying, this matters to me, speaking truth to power, and then someone taking the opportunity to be a climate leader. Mia Reback is now on, Bill McKibben's phone, all the time. They're always talking to each other. So she's a world leader on climate now because she stepped forward. I'm very hopeful because of those stories that you and others can go from advocacy to leadership quickly, and we will need that.
Thank you so much. Wonderful stories. Let's turn to Veronica Arias, the city of Quito. A dramatic scale up of climate action is needed in cities in order to meet the ambition of the Paris Agreement. How is Quito doing this about citizens, both young and elderly? How are you engaging them in the effort for doing this?
Bueno, voy a hablar en español, si no les importa. Creo que lo que demostró nuestro amigo acá, que es difícil pronunciar su nombre, pero él justamente representa a esta generación de los millennials. Y veo a él y les veo a mis hijos y veo a un conjunto de jóvenes que justamente tienen esa visión, esa pasión, esa holística y esa visión integral que es lo que necesitamos. Quito es una ciudad que tradicionalmente ha involucrado mucho a su ciudadanía. Parte de principios que entendemos que no solamente las autoridades tienen que hacer lo que tienen que hacer, sino que la ciudadanía es corresponsable de sus actividades y de compartir sus riesgos y sus oportunidades y sus metas definitivamente. Así que la actividad y participación ciudadana en cada uno de los ámbitos de lo que tenemos que desarrollar es crucial. En términos de cambio climático, básicamente desde hace 4 años hemos estado impulsando la Convención Nacional de Jóvenes por el Cambio Climático, representantes de todas las ciudades, de comunidades y naciones indígenas, que son 21 en el Ecuador, para que se reúnan cada 2 años a generar un diálogo y generan un plan de acción que ellos mismos el siguiente año ven cómo se lo implementa. El concepto es que vuelvan a sus comunidades y hablen y dialoguen con las autoridades para ver cómo incorporan sus metas, sus riesgos, sus ideas y se comparten conjuntamente. El otro tema la otra forma de involucramiento es el foro urbano ambiental. Y ahí no solamente comparten los jóvenes, sino más bien los ciudadanos también de la tercera edad y líderes comunitarios que son aquellos que conocen más la ciudad, que están más de cerca con los problemas de basura, de quebradas, de ríos, de contaminación, etcétera. Y ahí es la oportunidad para hacer el vínculo de cómo estos problemas justamente se pueden resolver y tienen que ver con el cambio climático. Entonces es una oportunidad de educar, pero también de recibir. Y estos son diferentes foros que comparten con las autoridades municipales para que posteriormente se haga un seguimiento de un plan de acción en base a lo que se dialoga en este tipo de acciones. Así que esos son unos dos ejemplos muy interesantes que hemos tenido efectos muy positivos en el diálogo, en el lobbying y evidentemente en el seguimiento de las políticas públicas que tiene el municipio de Quito.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring too. And now let's turn to you, Xiuhtezcatl. Now you have heard some mayors, some people responsible for how to run their cities and how to do some of these climate changes. Do you think, if you should give them an idea, now you have not only the whole audience, you have some mayors and you have a lot of mayors, could you give some ideas on how to take the enthusiasm and the ideas and the energy you have and transforming that energy into ways that cities can use that from you and from other people your age and other people in general who wants to be engaged in how to make a better world?
Right. One thing that I'm... Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. One thing that I'm very aware of is that as a leader, as a mayor, there are a lot of responsibilities and a lot of different things that a city needs to thrive. Climate change is a very important issue, but I think there are a lot of creative ways in which we can tackle and take care of multiple issues at once. And first of all, I see, I like the story that you were telling. Excuse me, I forgot your name, which is ironic because I have the hardest name to remember ever, but I forgot your name, sir. What was your name?
Sir Charlie, yes.
All right. One more time.
I'm sorry?
What's your name one more
Charlie.
time?
Charlie.
All right, Charlie. No, I love the story that you were telling about the World Cup soccer because I feel like that was a really great example of not necessarily climate action, but it was a way that was empowering people of all different kind of backgrounds to be able to come together and engage in their community. Whereas I believe that leadership and action on climate change also has to come from strengthening our communities. And I believe that we can do that in a lot of different ways that involves addressing multiple issues at once. You know, for an example, in a city that is a food desert, that doesn't have access to a lot of good, healthy food, one way that we can bring the community together, you know, work on sequestering carbon dioxide in our soil by practicing organic gardening, as well as, you know, feeding a community, possibly making a profit off of it as well. You know, urban gardening is an example of a solution that I feel like brings people together that is a direct action towards climate solutions. That I think is just another important step towards creating change in our communities. I feel like there's, you know, growing up in a very tight-knit community and then traveling to other parts of the country, I've seen that the case isn't necessarily always that we have strong, united communities. And I believe that is also a very important thing to focus on. And always having spaces for young people to be able to use and share their voices. Where I think since at a very young age, as young people, we were taught that we have to live up to a certain point in our life to be an active member of society, where we have to, you know, go to university and graduate and have a career, and then we're going to be participating in you know, making a difference in the world. We can't create change until we grow up. And I really do believe that lots of young people have lots of diverse ideas, and I'm not going to speak for, you know, all youth, but I do believe one thing that could be incredibly beneficial is to take time and take spaces and opportunities to help listen to what the young people say. And if the young people aren't engaged, I feel like there's a lot of creative ways we can have them plugged in as well. I know that in Portland there are different projects and initiatives to have different communities come together around painting their intersections and having huge actions of street art all over the city. And I've seen that, and I've been participated a little bit in all people come together around that. So if we can look at these different methods of art, of culture, of sports, of music, of dance, these different things that young people are engaged in, not necessarily environment or politics, but if we can look at these different methods that youth are interested in or inspired by, that can be a really great way to reach more young people and to invite them in. Say, you know, we are making an effort as leaders to invite young people and your voices to be heard in our community. We want you there. We want you to play your part. I think that's another, to kind of diversify the methods in which we are talking about these very important issues.
Thank you very much. I will get back to that a little later if we have time for that. Gabriella Gómez-Mont from from the City of Mexico. One of the areas in which youth are actively engaged is how to shape the direction of our cities through digital technology, meaning participating in civic activities and accessing and sharing information and innovation, and even holding city leaders to account through this digital technology. As an innovation lab, how are you helping Mexico City tap into all these creative ideas of its citizens? How you can use them for improving public services or tackling climate changes? And how do you ensure that this is inclusive, or at least as inclusive as possible, given that not everyone has access to or are able to utilize digital technology and the internet? You could see, how do you overcome the data divide we have in our society? Could you please share some thoughts about that?
Absolutely. So first of all, this morning preparing for this talk, I was thinking that probably Charles Dickinson is a great person to quote right now in terms of a tale not only of two cities, but of many cities worldwide, thinking that it really is the best and the worst of times to talk about open government and how we can restructure governance models. First of all, I mean, I think in terms of the despair, if you will, I believe that recent examples suddenly have us questioning once more, what does democracy mean? What are governance structures? And at the same time, I think there's definite signs of hope. One of them is density is destiny. It seems the way that cities are voting and that cities really are becoming a lot more engaged in local politics and wanting to participate and be part of the political decisions that are getting made. And the second is the youth vote. No, I think we all agree that possibly the strata that I'm most excited in Mexico City to engage is youth. So with a little bit of that in mind, and knowing that we're in Mexico City, which is 22 million people, a metropolitan area, as you all know, and 9 million people, city proper, one of the other stats that is interesting is that we have 50% under age 31, and in the metropolitan area we have almost 5 million kids. So what does this actually mean in terms of thinking of what government should do for its society nowadays and how we should act? And so I've been heading the lab for the last 3 years on an invitation of the mayor of Mexico City. And as a little bit of background, and I am slowly getting into your question, the lab is 20 people. Only 2 people from my team had prior experience in government, so we all come from civil society, many activists. Half of my team comes from the political, social scientist arena, urban geographers, civic tech, data analysts, and the other half comes from the creative fields, artists, designers, filmmakers, etc. And the average age is 29 years old. So in a certain sense, one of the things that we've been doing at the lab is prototyping. What could a new type of government office look like for a young generation that will feel that we are exploring urban forms and political languages that speak to who they are and what they want out of the city? So in terms of tech, one of the things that we found very interesting is, first of all, that we can definitely start thinking about technology as one of those spaces of hope, because democracy has never had a better time to include voices through new spaces where the one-on-one interaction, it does no longer has to be a representative democracy. Like, we can have one single voice amplified and societies articulated in very different ways because of the existence of said technology. So that is one of them. Second, people are already engaging and meeting, even though the voting is going down. Weirdly enough, what we're seeing in Mexico City in terms of percentages is that when you open up certain doors and speak in the way that, and basically offer up spaces that are already taken by the youth, there's an amazing response. So one example is our data festival, CDMX, where we work with different government officials to put open data out there and have young people come up with solutions, with statistics, with all sorts of things. And in the first one, we had 500 people signing up by day 2 and 200 people on the waiting list. And the last one was 1,027 people signing up for a data festival, where you have to work your heart out for 48 hours. These are people that want to engage, possibly not with government, if I may be provocative in that sense. They want to engage with the city. So if we tell the tale of government as a space and a portal and access to social life and to city life, then suddenly government becomes fascinating. And government officials become city makers right along with their citizens. Another recent example is Mapaton. You've probably seen, if you've been out of this hotel, and for the locals, you know what I mean when Microbuses, that are these small green buses, are everywhere. We have 30,000 of them. Another statistic that maybe even as a local we don't know is that is actually the transport that moves 70% of the city. There's an astounding number of 14 million rides done every day on those microbuses, and we have no data of what is happening on the ground. So I'd say it's no surprise that Mexico City has one of the most painful commutes in the world. And we have two problems. One of them, you cannot dictate public policy if you don't know what's happening on the ground. And second, as a bus user, the way that you have to, and locals will not let me lie, if you want to get to a place you've never been by a microbus system, you have to ask 5 people, kind of average out or see who looks more honest, and then you get on the bus and just like pray that you will get wherever you thought you were going. So what did we do? We did a citywide contest. If there's something that Mexico City has is people power. And to our huge surprise, we put out like very modest prizes. We had 4,000 people signing up, 700 teams, and in 2 weeks, we had the open data of our bus system for the first time that is now utilizable both for public policy as well as for apps. And the very last brief other example, Mexico City is just about to get a new constitution, which is a huge deal. We're getting upgraded in terms of autonomy from the federal government. And I asked the mayor if we could try to crowdsource parts of the constitution and see where the feeling was out there. And we did a liaison with change.org because we know that that's one of the ways that youth is engaging. And nowadays, I'm really happy to say that we have the largest movement in the world, 500,000, 500,000 people following. And we have 17-year-old adolescents that don't even have a voting age yet, that have 10,000 followers behind them. And the college student that has 63,000 people behind his petition. 13 out of the 14 petitions made it into the Constitution draft. Many of them met with the mayor. We worked with them to really get to solidify their proposals, and they've become activists in their community dealing with issues, environment, transparency, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where hope lies, I believe.
Thank you very much. I'm from Denmark, and in Denmark we are 5 million people, and you have 5 million kids. I mean, it shows different challenges, different places in the world, and different opportunities. I think the thing you say about data is very important, and that will make me turn to you, Veronica Arias. How is key to using technology and data to engage citizens and to reduce the carbon footprint of your city?
El manejo de la información es importantísimo y evidentemente el manejo de la línea base, digamos, es importantísimo. Si no tenemos una línea base que sabemos de dónde venimos y hacia dónde vamos, pues simplemente estamos dando palos de ciego. Creo que para la ciudadanía, especialmente para los jóvenes, demandan mucho el tema de transparencia y transparencia en información. En ese sentido, hemos trabajado mucho estos 2 años con apoyo del C40 para generar la información de cuál es las emisiones globales que tiene nuestro aporte como la ciudad de Quito en el tema de cambio climático. Sin duda alguna, el 52% de nuestras emisiones provienen del transporte, pero adicionalmente viene de la empresa, de la industria, del manejo de residuos sólidos y de desechos y del manejo doméstico. Es por eso el involucramiento de la ciudadanía que es tan importante, pero si no saben y no hay ese manejo de la información, simplemente no se sabe para dónde ir. Esto me lleva a que hemos construido de alguna forma algunos materiales interactivos con la ciudadanía para que de esta forma podemos educar y que también puedan contribuir de manera práctica que son en el detalle de lo que hace cada persona o que puede hacer cada persona en su día a día y puede hacer la diferencia. ¿A qué me refiero esto? Hemos llevado a diferentes sitios de la ciudad ecocines, donde se expone al público qué es lo que tiene la ciudad en términos de emisiones, de la problemática ambiental, pero también de conservación de su patrimonio natural, porque la ciudadanía por lo general vive en un sitio urbano, pero no sabe qué es lo que tiene alrededor, y especialmente en Quito, el 90% de su territorio son bosques, ¿no? Eso es importantísimo, hacer la conexión con la ciudadanía. Es una forma de educar. La segunda herramienta que hemos estado utilizando es precisamente aplicaciones de celulares. Por ejemplo, tenemos aplicaciones de los celulares para poder medir la huella de carbono de una manera simple que se la hace en 2 minutos y se les da los tips de cuáles son las acciones fáciles que puede uno como ciudadano emprenderlos en la casa, ¿no? En manejo de residuos sólidos, separación, ahorro de agua, de energía, etcétera, que muchas veces no lo sabemos y son de sentido común. La tercera es evidentemente la información subida a la página web en tiempo real y con modelamientos a futuro. ¿Qué pasaría en diferentes escenarios de aquí al 2030 con cambio de temperatura? ¿Sí? O, por ejemplo, en línea sobre la calidad de aire que tiene la ciudad de Quito y cuáles son las acciones que se deberían tener para llevar a cabo ciertas medidas por parte más bien de la ciudadanía y no tanto de la municipalidad. Y la tercera, que es muy, muy importante, es que si tenemos una meta global de ciudad, tenemos que empujar todos hacia lograr esa meta de ciudad, de bajar la huella de carbono, porque lo que hemos encontrado es que son esfuerzos independientes de la empresa privada a través de temas de responsabilidad social, el municipio de Quito por su lado, muchas veces la ciudadanía con programas de reforestación o cualquiera que sea de las actividades ambientales, pero todos ellos tienen que ir hacia una misma meta. Y para esto hemos logrado crear la distinción ambiental metropolitana, que es una certificación que se da a barrios, ciudadanos, empresa privada, que logren apoyar a la meta, a la reducción de la meta de la ciudad de Quito, involucrando cada vez más a la ciudadanía en general. Este es nuestro segundo año y cada vez vemos con más éxito este tipo de programas que ha sido muy aceptado por la ciudadanía.
I was wondering if I could just add something real quick.
Yes.
Pues escuchar toda la plática del futuro de tecnología, del desarrollo y creo que estas todas son partes del cambio que son muy importantes, ¿verdad? Pero también creo que el futuro del mundo tiene mucho que hacer, no nada más con el desarrollo, pero también a entender, a preguntar y a ver la información que tienen nuestros ancestros. Y también recordarnos de la gente de esta tierra, de la gente indígena, porque antes, pues hace muchos años había muchas gentes indígenas y tribus indígenas por todo el mundo que estaban viviendo en balance ya con el mundo, que no quitaron más que necesitaban, siempre regresaron a la tierra con ceremonia, con danzas, con canciones, y creo que esos entendimientos son muy importantes cuando estamos hablando de cambio en nuestras ciudades, que sí, que crecer es muy importante y que seguimos el desarrollo es muy importante, pero también recordarnos de los entendimientos de la gente indígena y de los ancestros de esta tierra, que hay una balanza de las dos, a ver el futuro también al pasado.
Thank you very much. This time in another language, and now I will.
I was going to jump onto that point, but
Yeah, but you can do that in just a second, because we're talking about data. We're talking about how to use data as a city, and what you just brought in is how to interpret data and how to use data both in the context of now and in the context of the past. I think that's a very good way for you to continue on. How are you doing that in Portland?
well, I want to return to politics for a minute because I was so intrigued by what both Gabriella and Xiuhtezcatl said about art. And you must understand, I'm still in post-traumatic stress because we just went through an election in which facts and data went out the window, right? And so I say we still govern with facts and data and analysis, as we must. And young people perhaps can be involved in that work through apps and other means. But I think there's a lesson from this crazy American election and maybe Brexit and other things that are happening in the world. And that is, I think, another opportunity for youth, and you've just done it here, is tell authentic stories and use the power of emotion. I had the most powerful experience as an elected official watching young people at our council table talking about, this is my sister, she's younger than me. I'm not sure what world she will be growing up in. Who could resist bad politics? It was authentic, it was personal. It hit me in the heart as a father. So use that passion in political action, but also in art and in music. And here's one I want to plant. Maybe it didn't work in the last American election, but who have Americans been listening to the most? Comedians, right? There's a huge opportunity for young people to make fun of adults here. I'm being serious. This is the most desperately serious issue of our time, right? But the two really terrible things for an elected official. One is to be shamed. You are my parent, why aren't you taking care of the earth? That works. But also to be laughed at. This is junk science that we're up against, right? You're all studying science in school. Come up with ways through art and music and drama to make fun of junk science. I think you will do this movement a favor. Again, you may not have the comfort of speaking truth to power as those young women did or as you do, but if you're an artist or if you're a musician or if you are a street theater person, find a way to make fun of junk science because it is junk science. It is a huge target, and I hope you hit it with everything you've got.
Thank you very much. You have a short reaction?
I have a very short reaction. One of the tweets that I was intrigued by when Trump won was Clay Shirky that said, we brought the pollsters to a culture war. So in many ways, I have the feeling that that is one of our most interesting reflections in terms of civic tech, that we've been trying to strip it and make it neutral, when actually we have to think about ideology, and we do have to think about politics, and we do have to think about how we give citizens better tools to envision the future of the city that they want. We recently did a poll for 43,000 people talking about urban imaginaries, the pains and the pleasures of the city and a vision for the future. And we found out that most people have either apocalyptic vision for the future of Mexico City or they don't have one. So what do we do with the emotional being that is a city as well? And how do we bring this in to the new tools and actually engage people from the gut as well as from the brain?
That is very interesting because what we do normally is we produce reports and we produce data and we use PowerPoint and we do a lot of things to share knowledge. And this session has been, except for this Twitter robot, just as traditional as everything else in the world we live in as being CEOs or mayors or secretary or leaders. Could you, Xiuhtezcatl, as the last thing, and just in a minute or maybe two, just say, I mean, if this has been with your high school, with people your age, how would this have been different? How are people your age reacting on your trying to entering another world than your own? And could you just throw us a rhyme or two about what we have to do about the climate?
Yeah. Okay. I see the clock ticking. Okay, let's go. All right. So listen up. The power to change the world is in each of our hands. And not the president or government, they still don't understand, because we fight for our people, for the planet we stand. As the government and industries walk hand in hand, we will fight for our rights against the tar sands. We will take back our streets. This is our land. This is the only home we got. We must protect it, not neglect it. Say no to the pipelines. We get Obama to reject it. Y la batalla que luchamos por el hombre humano, el tierra y el viento, la agua contaminado. Somos guardianes de la cultura de nuestros ancestros. Camati, por la vida me ha dado. Es una cosa sobrevivir y otra cosa crecer. Como un flor en el bosque es tiempo amanecer. Somos gente de la tierra, no la gente de la guerra. El camino rojo es nuestra cultura sagrada. Break free.
Muy bien, muy bien.
Thank you so much, and I think that was a perfect answer to my question, and I think Chairman Hidalgo is sitting here, and Mark Watts and all the other people from C40. I think what they should bring with home from this, that next time we have a summit, and we have to do a part of that for all the ordinary C40 adults. But we have to remember this, that we have to do it other ways. We have other kind of discussions, other way of including, using art, using the brain and the heart, as you said. And we have to use all our things to perceive this and to do something about it. This will conclude, I think. I have to have a signal if we are almost ready.
We are, yeah.
Nobody is saying the opposite.
They're nodding at us. I think they're ready.
Yeah, I think this will conclude this part of it. And I think this brings hope for all of us. The cities and the citizens have huge challenges ahead if we have to meet the ambition and to limit the warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And as this has been the last part of this, the last session of this summit before the closing summit in a minute, and I hope this has given you some inspiration and some view on the future, driven by the passion of young leaders and the effort to try to convert that into the role for the city leaders to use technology and to use other means to engage them and all the citizens, not only the young people, but all the citizens. We all have a mutual goal of maximizing the climate action. So I think this has been a wonderful way to hear from different approaches on how to do these things. So what I've learned these 2 days is that the bad news is we have a very, very tough challenge ahead of us. It's very, very complicated. But don't travel home with that bad news. Travel home with the good news. It can be done. Remember that there has been a lot of knowledge sharing of good techniques, good solutions, good ideas, good products. City mayors, city leaders from all over the world can use. But don't forget the human resource. Don't forget the citizens of your cities to be a part of this. C40 represents cities with 650 million people living in them. And that resource is so important, and I think this session has showed it by all means. So we have to have focus on the young people, the old people, and all the people, but the young people is our future, and we have to remember to listen to them. So thank you for all of your participation. Thank you for your keynote speak. Thank you for the photographers and for the part with the winners, and thank you for all of you for being here and listening. Thank you.
Muy bien.
Thank you so much.
Good morning.